of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me as I pray. Again, Father, we're always thankful for the blessings of this day, and sometimes they lie before us. We don't know how you're going to bless our lives today, but we're on our feet. We're standing here. We're meeting to conduct the business of this county, and we pray for these commissioners that they will make decisions that benefit all the citizens of this county. And your word says, where your treasures lie, there too lies your heart. And there's so many treasures in people's lives today, but I just pray that these commissioners will value the treasure of this great county that you've given them to conduct the business of, and they'll keep that in mind as they make their decision. Rich, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Linda, do we have any citizens to be heard?
There's one right there.
Go
ahead and do roll call.
Do you want to do this now, or we're going to
Number
just?
21.
Oh, okay. Roll call.
Judge Mills. Commissioner Cheney.
Here.
Commissioner Castleman.
Here.
Commissioner Russo.
Here.
Commissioner Lava.
Here.
Carrie, we're going to discuss these deals. Do you want to speak now, or do you want to wait?
During number 21.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have a presentation from Ready, you're on.
Good morning, court. My name is Misty Kimbrough. I'm the Lorances County collections specialist. I just wanted to present some information on how y'all can understand the numbers that I present to y'all every month. I do present, it's a monthly report, and I was going to give you some updates at the end of this as well. This is the actual monies collected by year. And you can see it goes up and down greatly. Part of that is the time of the year, because when school is starting, people are spending their money to get their kids supplies. Christmas time, it goes down a little bit. There's times that just naturally go up and down. And then also part of that is when we do show cause hearings, people don't want to come before the judge again, and they don't want to go to jail, so they'll get caught up on their payments. On the right is the cases number filed and the ones that are actually convicted. And on the left is the actual monies that we've collected by those years. And you can see there is a direct correlation between convictions and how much money we bring in. This is the percentage of scheduled payments made on time. We were doing really well in the 70 percentile area. And then we had a slow decline in 2019. And then once COVID hit and all the restrictions, we dropped way down. We are slowly building back up. It's going to take some work until people get steady employment again and get back on their feet and get caught up on their bills and such. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
On the conviction, that's 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Right?
No, that's the actual number for.
So that's a count number.
Yes.
Not a dollar number.
The left, the count number on the right for convictions and filed, on the left is hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the percentage of scheduled payments made that we discussed. COVID has greatly affected that. And this is credit for community service. So in May, when things started opening up again, and we really started getting people to hold them accountable for their payments again, because life had gotten back to almost normal. We started using community service, or pushing community service, as a way to pay their fines and court costs. They get $12.50 per hour towards their fines and court costs for community service hours. The jump in July and August is because we had show cause hearings. We heard 292 cases, which show cause means they get to come before the judge and tell him or explain to him why they have not been making their payments. Yes,
You say they get $12.50 an hour. That's $12.50 credit. We don't actually
Correct.
pay. Okay,
Correct.
just want to be sure. Thank
Correct.
you.
it's just it's a non-monetary payment.
Okay.
And when they get that summons back to court, a lot of them will start making their payments either by community service or by monies again, because they don't want that process. We are currently about 25% of our payments are made with community service hours. Again, that's a non-monetary payment. That jumped from about 4% during COVID. So since COVID has happened, we have jumped greatly in the community service hours for them to stay compliant with their judgment.
Misty, is that fairly common with other counties?
It is. I just got back we had our conference in September, and these are right in there within 5% of what's happening within the state.
Okay.
You say, why community service? Well, Code of Criminal Procedure back in September of 2017, it became law that we offer non-monetary payments for them to stay in compliance with their judgments. And it is laid out what we can accept for those community service hours. First of all, they have to make good faith effort. If they don't, that's when they do the show cause hearing, whether it's with monies or community service payments. The things that are laid out by law is work skills training, preparatory classes for high school. So if they're getting their GED, we can give them credit for that. Alcohol and drug abuse, so AA, NA, those types of programs, rehabilitation programs, counseling programs, mentoring programs, and similar activities to that. They can also work for any government entity, any nonprofit organization that meets a 501c3 title. They have the right to work for those, and that is most churches as well, although very few are working for churches, and then any educational institution.
When you say work, that is, again, the volunteer hours.
The volunteer community service hours for them.
So they might pick up debris along the beach or something of that for the
Yes.
government. Okay, thank you.
So just this year through September, we have clocked or credited 1,944 and a half hours towards community service credit. At $12.50 an hour, that's a total amount credited of $24,306.25. If you put this into what that does for us as a county, because we're not receiving monies for that, is a jail credit day is $100 per day. So we've saved 243 jail days for them doing community service hours over them sitting in our jail to set these judgments out. Average cost per jail day is $85 per person. And that is a savings of $20,660.31 to the county by accepting community service. Judgment with a monetary sentence. The defendant will then come to collections, which is me. And every single person now, and it's in our judgments, has the right to do community service or pay with money or any combination at any time. They can use all options as a Code of Criminal Procedure 4309 allows, and the community service is that $12.50 or 8 hours equaling $100. The payments, whether money or community service, must be turned in by the due date. It is a payment, whether it's a non-monetary payment or monies. This is what happens if they're late. At 3 days late, they get an automated phone call, which is free for us through the iPlow, which is the system that I use for collections. At 7 days late, a blue postcard goes out, and also a text from our new credit card system, which is government portal, goes out. And that text is free as well. At 14 days late, a bright orange postcard goes out. 21 days late, I print a list. I go through that list. If they have emails, I email them. If they don't, I try to make a personal phone call. At 60 days late, as long as they're not on probation, then we set it for show cause hearing. And we also put a hold on them renewing their driver's license if they have an active driver's license. If they are on probation, the probation officer gets notified that they are now 2 months behind in their payments, because part of probation is that they pay their fines and court costs. It's in their probation conditions. And then every month until compliance, they get a free text to us. They get a text every single month reminding them that it's due.
Oh, Missy, one real quick question. If they're out there working and get hurt on it, whose insurance covers them?
They are not covered under any insurance, and we have them sign a waiver so that they know that by statute. I can't tell you the statute off the top of my head,
Okay.
but by statute, we are not responsible. They are not covered under any insurance by the people that are accepting them as workers or by us as sending them to them.
Okay.
Layouts. That is when the judge waives fines and fees, and there can be lots of reasons for that. At 15 years or older without any contact or any activity in the case, the judge has the right to waive those fees and clear that case. We have done some of those. We're up to the 15-year mark when COVID hit and we weren't having court and I had more time. I went through every case from beginning of time all the way up to 2007, which is that 15-year mark. And we have, if I could not find those individuals and make contact, we have closed those cases. And that's why there's a big jump, a couple of big jumps there. Also, when I start working these show cause hearing dates, I go back through all of them. And if they're deceased, if they are on hospice, if they're in jail for life, there's things that by law we can waive these fines and fees because they're termed uncollectible. And that's what those numbers represent. Read that one. So these are waivers. These are the waivers. I told you wrong. Layouts are jail time. I apologize for that. So the layouts are jail time. And these go up and down depending on the availability of our jail. There are times where they can no longer accept defendants who have KPS pro fines. But if they get arrested and they have KPS pro fines, we serve them at that time and they lay those out while they're in our jail. The waivers is what I was talking about, where the judge can waive those fees at 15 years or older. The defendant is deceased, on hospice, or in life prison. And you can see the big jump in 2020, which is when I was working those cases. We've had this IPLOW, which is the collections program, since August of 2015. And the performance measures that I always keep in track of are plans established, automated phone calls, how many late notices are we mailing, and then how many actions, which can be them coming in or me changing their payment plan due to loss of job or a new baby, or they've had COVID. There was a lot of changing of plans if they were got sick with COVID. So 2020 had 181 plans, 682 automated phone calls. And remember, the automated phone calls are free to us. The late notices mailed 1,051 and the 9,344 actions. And those actions take me making a note or something in those cases. Not 2019, we had 397 plans established, which means convictions, 968 automated phone calls, 1,268 notices or postcards mailed, 9,476 actions. 2018, we had 493 plans established, 1,048 phone calls, 1,332 late postcards mailed, and over 10,000 actions. My goal in this position is to help people be successful. If they are successful, all the rest of this falls into place. I have notices for workforce solution. I have our real transportation available. Anything that might help people that are struggling financially, I have it in my office ready for them at all times. I have it ready to email to them or to text to them.
Missy, you talked about GED.
Mhm.
If we have a constituent out there that is out of school or maybe wants to do a GED, can we have them contact you to get sources on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I've just recently I've had several of those that occurred, and used to we just had them contact the school district, and the school district doesn't seem to be as responsive.
I have flyers on my desk about who to call for GEDs.
Good. And also, are you still pleased with IPLOW?
I absolutely love it.
Okay.
And what it does for us for the cost, the free phone calls alone saves us so much money. And we only pay $56.20 a year for it.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you very much.
It's an extremely cheap program for what it does for us.
I thank you for this presentation. It really helps understand the reports that you've given us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now we have a proclamation recognizing our very great volunteer, Russell Balcom, for his public service for the Ransom Pathways program. Tracy?
Yes, this is Proclamation P 16/2021, recognizing Aransas County contract employee Russell Balcom for his public service with the Aransas Pathways program. Whereas the public employees of Aransas County are committed to exhibiting the highest standards of excellence, dedication, creativity, efficiency, and professionalism. Whereas the mission of Aransas Pathways is to create and maintain sites around the county to promote tourism, and Aransas County contract employee Russell Balcom has been an integral part of that mission. Whereas in January 2014, Russell Balcom assumed the position of maintenance person for the Aransas Pathways program as a contract employee. Whereas when Russell Balcom came to work for Aransas Pathways program, he assisted the county project manager with building all of the pathway locations. Whereas Russell Balcom worked with the nonprofits who utilize the pathway sites for their events, most of which took place over the weekends. And whereas prior to Hurricane Harvey landfall, Russell Balcom worked with the county project manager to secure the pathway venues. One of the locations he boarded up was the History Center. As a result of his efforts, the History Center sustained minimal damage, and the rest of the sites had very little loss. Now, therefore, let it be known that on this 25th day of October 2021, the Aransas County Commissioners Court wishes to recognize, acknowledge, and profusely thank Russell Balcom for his hard work and dedication to the Aransas Pathways program.
Tom wants to say a few words too.
Oh, God. All that helped. For those who know me, I'm Tom Callan, or who don't know me, I'm Tom Callan. I'm co-chair of the Pathways organization. If we go back to a little time on the view for you, I'll start with probably our southernmost point. West. It's full bay, and then you come down to 188 bridge. We moved from 188 bridge to bigger. Also a lot of history, Connie Hager, right? Yep. Well, it's kind of a short. We come back from there to perhaps Ivy Lane, burning site. Not used as much as the others, but a good place to go and meditate. From there, you come on up to probably to the west, which is the bridge. We had any weddings on the bridge, huh? I do not know. And then to the east, which is of course to the marsh. That was a nightmare to put that together, but had that probably wouldn't happen. Moving from there, we go up to Castro. Castro was a good shape of probably a site. Between Castro and perhaps a pavilion at two. Leaving there, we go a little further north. We wind up Airport Road kayak launch site. I skipped by unintentionally. I remember what happened there once. And once we get past that, wind up in Holiday Beach. Both of you have been to Holiday Beach. It's kind of primeval, but it's a good place. The whole point of making that listing. Yes, sir, thank you. The whole point of making that listing has to do with Russell Balcom. One, for Russell, none of those places would be very well maintained, if maintained at all, except by the great volunteers we have. It's just too much work for a volunteer. group. So Russell has filled in that crack easily. He's been with us for 7 years, I think. If we count 14 as his start year. He's been a wonderful employee, eager to serve, always available, even on weekends. So we have to thank Russell profusely for his efforts. Where is Russell? There he is. There he is. And Russ, it's been a real pleasure to work with you from time to time. I've never heard you say no. I've heard you grouse and complain a little bit. But I really had never heard of no, I can't do that or I can't get to it. And we thank you for that. If we had people with your dedication all over the county, we would have to have a court. But thank you so much. And with those words being said, I have one other word to say. You had I just went through 11 sites, and when we were building those, some of it was kind of iffy. And my friend Steve McCall, who's the other co-chair for us, said, you know, if we could have a success building all these sites, but if we don't maintain them, we fail. And I think that he was absolutely right. We've been able to maintain them, and I hope that we're able to have the funding to continue our efforts in that regard. I don't know how many tourists, as I said, I don't know how many tourists are here on the County Pathways, but I know it's a bunch. And the Chamber's efforts, you know, this has been a two-organization deal, really, in terms of tourism. And Chamber and us, and between us, we've done a good job, I think. So with that, Russ, come on up. This plaque's for you in appreciation for all your hard work and dedication over the last 7 years, keeping the Ransom Pathways venues looking beautiful for both citizens and visitors. Many thanks from Ransom County Commissioners, Ransom Pathways Steering Committee.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Not me, I'm just a contractor. Y'all are this.
Well, you did a great job.
Let's get up for a picture.
I'm a, oh, well,
We appreciate you.
Verse 6.
Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you.
Anytime you want to come back, it's a lot.
Just because you get the plaque, don't set it free.
You know, never noticed before, I guess we don't vote on proclamations. They just sort of show up on the agenda and then, you know, they happen.
Now we have a proclamation recognizing October 2021 as Youth Justice Month in Lorances County.
All right, Proclamation P 17/2021. Whereas National Youth Justice Action Month is recognized each October to encourage the implementation of trauma-informed, age-appropriate rehabilitation policies with state correctional programs and facilities throughout the United States, and to raise public awareness about the prosecution of young offenders as adults within the criminal justice system. And whereas all children deserve the chance to fulfill their greatest potential, and all too often, children in the juvenile justice system are not provided with the tools necessary to thrive. And whereas children, especially children of color, continue to face unjust prosecution and incarceration in the adult criminal justice system across our state and our county. And whereas prosecuting juvenile offenders as adults increases the likelihood of future offenses and disrupts their pursuit, of housing, education, and employment. And whereas many children involved in the juvenile justice system have been in or remain in the foster care system or grow up in environments where violence and drugs are pervasive and opportunities are lacking. And whereas we must strive to invest in preventative measures that divert youth from the juvenile and adult criminal justice systems and instead encourage the development of community, family, and school-based services to provide after-school programs, job training, treatment for substance abuse, and counseling services. And whereas America is a nation of second chances and justice means giving every young person a fair shot. Whereas we must work together to identify more effective programs for juvenile offenders that hold them accountable for their actions while supporting their personal growth, positive behavior changes, and long-term success. Now, therefore, let it be known on this day, the 25th day of October, 2021, that the Aransas County Commissioners Court duly convened and acting in its capacity as the governing body of Aransas County, hereby proclaims the month of April 2021 as Youth Justice Action Month in Aransas County. The Aransas County Commissioners urges all residents to get involved in community efforts to support our children, especially those in the justice system, and to give all children the resources they need to live up to their full potential.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Do we give them the proclamation?
Right. Jen, I have a question for Jen. Should we vote on proclamations? Does that, it seems odd to just have something on the agenda and then take effect and we haven't actually voted.
No, proclamations generally are made by the county judge,
Okay.
but you can vote if you'd like if all of you would like to endorse the proclamation.
Well,
And in
we've
this case, I did include signature lines for each of you.
Right, we generally sign them, and so that's enough to make it effective. You're not worried
Yes,
about
it
it.
is.
Okay.
But we would like to present that proclamation, if it's okay with the court, to Dana Justice and a representative here from our probation office.
All right, now we have the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent items on the agenda.
Second.
Have a second.
Yeah, Wendy.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lala.
Aye.
Next, we have the third quarter.
You want to read who's doing the donations, just as a moment?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll get,
I move to approve the third quarter 2021 report.
Wanted to call out the names of the people who made the.
all right, in the consent
Okay.
agenda, we had a number of donations from different people. We have $100 donation from Thomas and Alice Myers to the animal control. We have a donation from Sarah Haskins, owner of Dog and Pet Resort, 25 used dog beds, value of $500. We have donation of $50 from Noreen and Ed Tour.
September.
September. Oh, maybe it was a misspelling.
September.
And we have donations from all of them. We have a number of certificates of compliance from clerks, employees that have attended conferences. So
I'd like to make one on the number 6. It's not Dog Pet Resort, it's Salty Dog Pet Resort.
okay.
Are those people here the ones who donated for the animal control to be recognized? No, Lori? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
One
But thanks
thing
for the work
Yeah,
you're
thanks to
doing.
them anyway.
Yeah, one thing, Laura, you're doing a really good job out there. It's been a long time since we've had so many donations come in and that's a good sign of a well-run kennel.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, next we have the third quarter report from the Maritime Museum.
I have a motion from Commissioner Russo. Is there a second?
Second.
Just talking to both of them. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Cheney,
Yes, sir.
Casterline, Ms. Laubach, Ms. Russo. It's good to see you all again. Thank you all for having me, as always. I appreciate it. I'll try to keep this short, especially since it's third quarter, so there's not as much to report on. And as always, I like to tell you that I'd like to start with a maritime fact, just to keep you guys interested and not bored by the numbers. If you go to the next screen here, as you guys know, I like talking about the Civil War. This is another recent image that I've acquired. This is an eyewitness sketch of the Battle of Port Lavaca back in 1862, October 31st. A few days before, USS Westfield, the flagship of the Texas Squadron for controlling all Union forces, and her identical sister ship, USS Clifton, bypassed Fort Esperanza into Matagorda Bay, where they began a week and a half of show of force intended to shock the Confederates into submission. This is the first time two big steamers made it into the bay because all the other ones had too high of a draft, or deep of a draft, I should say. These guys were able to stay in the shallows, get out of the cannon's range of the fort, and they were able to successfully capture Indianola. Supposedly, they really just kind of went in there and said, we're in control, and the Germans there didn't want to have any part of the battle. So they just said, all right, well, okay, we're captured. And they went on to capture numerous prize vessels. They also raided the town of Matagorda. They stopped for an oyster bake where they raked the entire bottom, and then continued on up to Port Lavaca, where they demanded surrender. That is Port Lavaca in the background. That is Westfield on the port side and Clifton on the east side. And after asking for surrender, the Confederates said no, whereas the Union started bombarding the town from about a mile and a half, causing significant damage. The Confederate fire returned. The Union had to move 2 miles off. They kept bombarding the town until Westfield's 100-pound Parrott rifle in the bow exploded. They ended up retreating further out of the bay and heading back to Galveston. Now, the Union says it was because of lack of ammunition. The Confederates said, we chased them off. You guys can make up your mind, but both sides claim victory. This is one of my favorite eyewitness sketches. So I need to send this to the Calhoun County Museum now that I've discovered this. But onto our general numbers, despite entering into our third quarter, which should be a slower quarter since it marks the end of summer, our numbers remain steady, if not higher, if we do not count the patron party and the wine festival, which always inflates our second quarter numbers. So subtracting the estimated 2,800 wine attendees from our second quarter total of 4,897 people, we're left with 2,997 regular attendees. So third quarter reached 2,507 people, so a 19.5 increase. That was unexpected. So we're doing good. So for this past quarter, and this is impressive, we have 1,471% positive increase between last year's 49 from out-of-state visitors and this year's 770. It's a lot. Although not much to mention, we have had a slight increase in international museum visitors. Again, not much to talk about. 1 in 2020 and then 5 in 2021. Our attendance for this year for people traveling, I'm sorry, I should tell you when to switch, huh? We should be on slide 5. So our attendance for this year for people traveling 70 plus miles out of Rockport has increased from 794 people to 1,536 people, or a 93% increase.
Double.
we're making all these changes to the museum. People like it. They're recognizing it. They're coming back. And we're getting increased visitation and people staying in Rockport to have, a tour and then also to see all the other site attractions around the community.
Justin,
yes,
can I
sir.
ask you a question
Yes, sir.
about that? In the business like Maritime Museum, how often should you change your presentation? Because I noticed whenever your previous director was here, it stayed pretty static for a long time. The numbers stayed well.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing against that, but you came in and they jumped up. How long are you planning on doing this before you change the?
Everything changes every year, not completely, but enough to bring people back. I'm sorry.
It evolves.
It evolves and things are added. Some things are subtracted. Kathy did a wonderful job setting up the initial exhibit. The problem is that she was very focused on the LaBelle shipwreck for 20 years because that was the hottest item in Texas. When the Bob Bullock Museum actually finished the ship remains and we actually reconstructed it there was less reason to come here. So the numbers just kind of stayed neutral and Bob Bullock got all the attention. Now, what I'm doing is, since we're starting from the earliest time period, going all the way up to oil, and we're showing the entire coast, it's bringing in more people from different areas of Texas who are like, well, I want to see my county. I want to see Brazoria County. I want to see, Calhoun County or Beaumont. I don't remember the county, but that's the point. So we are having major exhibits that will evolve, as you termed, and then others that will be completely replaced every year. So
I think that's a really good idea since the name of the facility is the Texas State Maritime Museum.
yes, exactly. So I'm already seeing repeat visitors. I'm recognizing faces. They come back. They want a longer tour. They want to see what's new, and we have new stuff to show them. And again, all these exhibits are very interactive. So it's not just text on a wall. So that's getting the kids in there, which is getting the families, the grandparents, and it's bringing people back.
Whenever we have special events like, the wine tasting and different things like that, do we make it a point to notify all of the Texas coastal communities
Yes.
in Louisiana that what we're doing so that they can keep fresh in their minds what we're doing down here, and we can keep fresh in our minds what they're doing up there so that we can serve the public better?
So what I'm doing is I'm creating a network of museums and we all communicate. For instance, I'm working with the Freeport Museum in 2 weeks. Then I'm going to be up at the Clifton Museum in Beaumont, or I'll be at the Victoria Museum, the Coastal Bend. I've been working heavily with Corpus. So we all communicate events that are going on. Something like the Wine Festival, we're pushing the advertisement much further out. So basically all the way to the Red River, the Sabine River, and further into the valley, which we haven't really done in past years. We kind of stuck around San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin, and Fort Worth.
And I don't mean to
No, you're
belabor this,
fine.
but how are we including the valley in this? Because that's a huge amount of population.
We're not doing billboards as much. We're sending out a lot of information that's digital and also paper pamphlets that are going to other museums that will advertise it, or we will advertise with Channel 3 and they will send it all over the state in bursts. So I've got a really good educator who I brought on board, Shelly Knoxman. She's really good with social media. So she's putting it out on Facebook, and I'm not a big social media guy. So all the things that the millennials are using, so they're getting wind of it.
The reason I was asking about the valley is the population down there is so diverse
Sporadic.
now. I mean, it was pretty localized, but it's really diverse. And I would think that that's a huge market that we need to look at.
We got a very good result from the Valley this time. And that's because we took a different marketing approach. We, believe it or not, we're still using paper. And it seems like there's a lot of magazines in that vicinity. There's a lot of wine lovers, and that was a successful campaign. So I can send you those numbers if you'd like to see.
No. I just want to make sure that that was being done because we always talk about everything north of us and never anything south of us.
Well, there's apparently quite a bit of wine lovers down there. So they've got wine magazines and things like
I think
that.
they're everywhere.
And so, yeah, but we started advertising in them and we got really positive feedback. And yeah, I was impressed. So I think that this last wine festival, obviously everybody wanted to get out over COVID, but the fact that we expanded our advertising area made a big difference. So,
Thank you. Great.
all right. So anyway, as I said, we had a huge jump. We from 794 people to 1,536 people, or 93% increase for 70 miles out. These are repeat customers coming in, staying in Rockport, sometimes Corpus, we always ask, but we have a lot of them staying here in Rockport at some of the museums. Others have, homes that they stay with with friends. We go on to the next one. So again, to sum up the general numbers for this year, to this date, so basically first through third quarter, we have a total change of 3,833 people. So that is a positive 83.5%. I hope this will continue into our fourth quarter, but I'm skeptical because it starts slowing down as you get into the later months. So we are going to be having our annual gala, our ball, or at least we're planning to. And we're bringing back other things like we had that book signing. I was so happy to see you there.
It was terrific. It was very well attended too.
He's a very good colleague of mine. So I'm starting to talk to all my other friends that heavily publish. We're going to start doing a series like that. We're also bringing back our lecture tours or series. And so I have a lot of my colleagues who present on subjects, not just for Texas, but around the world, which people will find interesting. So that's going to bring more people in. And that's going to be advertised statewide as well. So once we get our docent program set up where people can get personal tours, we just had a successful one on Saturday where we had about 20, 25 people. I actually was giving the tour. I want to start doing that every weekend and then every week, like multiple times throughout the week. So people don't have to come through and just read everything. They can actually have somebody who's animated, even in costume, and, just give them a real good time. So, and that's what's going to bring people in. So if we go to the next one. So you can see our numbers between 2016 and 2021 with this year only combined attendance to date. So far, in just that short amount of time, we've had 8,424 people in the past 9 months. That's pretty cool. Now, again, some of that's inflated because of the wine festival. That was the hugest, is that a word? The biggest event.
It is now.
Okay. It was the largest we've had. So hopefully next year we can do the same thing and bring in that many people. So if we go to the next one, in terms of our expenditures, the support that the county has given us has been extremely helpful to our continued operation. As you can see on the sheet, the museum respectfully asks the county for the same granted curatorial education costs to remain the same as last quarter. And the granted funds that you gave us last time have already been extremely helpful in rebuilding our educational programs, especially now that I have an educator that I was able to hire, and continuing the renovation of all of our exhibits. So last time I mentioned that we were going to use some of those funds to hire new staff. We finally have a complete team, which after being on a skeleton crew for so long has furthered our success. So thank y'all for everything y'all have done. So if you go to the next one, and I'll wrap this up, don't worry. Our new educator continues to create fun programs for the museum, especially since our summer camps are over. We have all sorts of crazy things, talk like a pirate, kids get to dress up. If you go to the next one, our back to school event was a huge success with the kiddos and incorporated a variety of activities with many people coming in from the community to help out. You could see somebody face painting in the upper right-hand corner and other volunteers just helping the kids do these activities. If you go to the next one, this is my favorite event so far. This was cool. We had a diverse group of people from the Defense Language Institute English Language Center based out of San Antonio. These groups came during a 4-week period, stayed in town, also stayed in Corpus, and had national origins from all over the world, especially Africa, the Middle East, and which was interesting because I couldn't get many photos of them. A lot of them refused to be photographed, and I didn't push it. If you go to the next one. We're still, like I said, we're still working on our docent program. So I should have some more for you about that and the lecture series that has been out of action since 2020, the first month or so. So I hope to bring my colleagues in so they could share that work that I was telling you about. So guys, thank you again. We really appreciate all the support you guys have given us, have been continuing to give us, and I will keep working my tail off and getting this
Thank you for
museum
all the
going.
hard work. You know,
I'm having fun.
really, really good.
Thank y'all.
I think we have a roll call. I think we have a motion.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
All right, next we have the report from the Chamber of Commerce.
I move to approve the fourth quarter 2021 report for the Rockport Fulton Chamber of Commerce.
I'll second that.
Good morning.
Morning.
Our team this morning, myself, Diane Probst, Sandy Jumper of our staff, and our new staff person that we'll talk about in just a little bit, Jared East. So the quarterly report basically represents what we've been doing for the county and the city of Rockport and the town of Fulton for the July, August, and September quarter, and then moving into the October, November, and December quarter, what
Thank
we're
you.
going to do. So first off, the first slide. Okay. Let's see, the 4th of July weekend was strong. It was steady. We were going along just great. And then we had this humongous flood. Tourism Development Council, we were presenting budgets. We were looking at numbers, determining exactly how much to spend, how much would get approved, et cetera. We're working on event press releases. We were working on our radio, television, and outdoor ads and that delivery. We were working on our Facebook promoted posts, things that were outdoors, things that were enticing for people to see as COVID was continuing to progress, we were introducing them to pathway sites, et cetera, that were all outdoors. We continue to work hard responding to gotexas.com, tourtexas.com, and of course the digital campaign that's generating ads in the social ads, mobile geofenced ads, geofollow areas, and then next gen behavioral targeting, and our geotour sites. Now, to talk about the geotour, we have Sandy that will explain that to you.
So I know you're probably thinking, what the heck is a geotour? And that I think we thought the same thing when we started to bring it in. But if you are familiar with geocaching at all, it's basically kind of like a hide and seek for adults and children. So you have these little cache boxes or big cache boxes, and they're hidden all across your county. So if you see people and they look like they're out in the woods looking for something or are looking for something on public places, that's probably what they're doing. And if you're watching them, they call you a muggler. So if the muggles are out, they stop looking. So we're all muggles if we're not actually geocaching. And I think we've got a video to show you to explain a little more about what that is.
And a cache is not CASH.
CACHE.
Do I
Is it
hit
playing?
or I hit it?
Geocaching is an any day, anytime adventure to amazing and beautiful places, or even just to a place in your town that you've never been before. There are millions of geocaches worldwide. There are probably even some near you right now. Yes, you. To start finding them, just get out your phone or GPS. Go ahead. I'll wait. Then, create a free geocaching account and you're ready to go. The way it works is simple. Just choose the geocache you want to find, then navigate to its location. What you're looking for varies. Geocaches come in different sizes, shapes, and difficulties. Geocaching isn't always easy, so it's okay to get excited when you discover the cache. After finding it, sign the logbook. Trade knickknacks if you want, and log your find online. When you're done, just put the geocache back where you found it, and you're on to the next one. Hey, it's the other way. There's an adventure happening all the time, all around you. Become a part of it at geocaching.com.
So to tell you a little more about the geocaching, you can get passports, you can get path tags, coins, souvenirs. So people come here from all over, and they are coming here just to go geocaching. We are almost the most favored in Texas right now, and we've only been open since July. So that's pretty exciting. We've got 50 sites. So get out there and go geocaching and help us.
Geocaching is an
Oops, there we go. So on to the website, the key findings for the website. These are great numbers showing that people are searching and finding us on the website, mostly a lot organically. So 210,000 users from October 20th to August 2021. That was our latest month to grab numbers. This compares to a full year of 2019 to September 2020, which produced about 190,000 users. So the demographics of these website visitors are something we study so that we could do focused targeting ads. Decreases in the 55 plus and increases in the 18 to 34 and the 35 to 54 age segments. So we're watching that very closely so that we can target and look at the different digital within those ads to make sure they're meeting that demographic. A significant 1 in 4 web visitors are aged 18 to 34. Females continue to favor their site at about 54% to 46% males, a 40 ratio. Website users' interests continue to include food, dining, clothing, pet lovers, shoppers, outdoor enthusiasts, do-it-yourselfers, business professionals, family-focused, beauty, wellness, and bargain hunters. Geographically, the majority of the web visitors continue to come from within Texas at 77%. And I think a lot of that was due to COVID, just looking for close by areas to get away. Houston, then San Antonio, Austin, followed by Rockport and Corpus Christi. After website visitors find the Rockport Fulton website organically, the highest sources visitors use to get to the site are through the digital marketing campaigns that we're using to advertise and reach the people. The next page is the digital online campaign. October 2020 through July of 2020 put the Rockport Fulton website in front of over 7 million individuals, producing 66,875 trackable actions, including 58,361 clicks and another 8,514 engagement. The overall click-through rate, CTRs, was 0.59%. Tactics used, and we've already kind of gone over all that, the mobile geofencing, the video pre-rolls, the social campaigns, and the behavioral targeting and site targeting. The demographics of the campaigns typically match those who visit the website. So Rockport Fulton had 67,123 followers on Facebook. This is specifically the Visit Rockport Fulton Facebook page as of August of 2021. This continued to stair step up. The demographics of the Facebook followers are similar to the website, and that's something we monitor to make sure that demographic is intact. They're more apt to be female, and their ages are 35 to 54. The fans by far and away are primarily from San Antonio, about 20,000. Secondary areas are Houston and Austin. Tertiary area is the Rockport Corpus Christi area, but it is less than 3,000. Now, consumers searching for Rockport Fulton on Google, because the site is one of the very first sites created, Google My Business continues to do good. It's increased to 58,219 in the May, June, July time period. Previous periods, fourth quarter 2019 and spring 2020 searches were in the low to mid 30s. The vast majority of the 2,410 who took action visited the Rockport Fulton website, just over 1,500, while about 454 called, 430 requested directions. Significantly, just over 79,000 viewed a photo during the
June, July, August. So they like visuals, they like photos, they like showing the Rockport Fulton area visually. So the next slide shows visitation within the visitor center. If you'll look far to the right, the outside of 70-mile area shows that 88.13% visitors came from outside 70 miles of our area. 11% were from the local area. Of that 88%, you can look down at the next set of lines showing San Antonio continues to win the award for the most visitors coming to our area at 19.37%, followed by Austin next, then Dallas-Fort Worth, and then Houston. So the Rockport Fulton area continues to surpass the area with 7.92%, and then 1.95 from the Corpus Christi area, but Victoria continues to hang in there at 1.09%. So this is the venue tax, another evaluation metrics that we use. So the gray area for the 2021 year, which I've noted the freeze and the flood, the totals for up through September are 3,073,061.19, which is 55.39% up over previous year. So I went and just plugged in the numbers just to see where we would be at the end of this year if we just met last year's numbers. And that'll take us a little over $700,000 for the venue tax. So this is the 2% across the board visitor tax taxed onto the visitor, and it's paying for the pathways projects. So a great measure for us to see the performance of the hotel tax, and never in our minds would we have thought that it would have jumped that high this quickly. That's attributed to the short-term rentals that have been popular during the COVID period, and then of course our normal accommodations that are available.
Okay, so you'll see this is our annual room night sold, and 238,570 room night sold in 2020, which is an increase of 35.5% over 2019. You can see that it's creeping up and that we are almost to the point of having the same amount as we had pre-Harvey.
I have a question, Sandy. This is 2020. Do you have any numbers for 2021, or you won't have those till the
It's
end?
annual.
Okay.
Okay, so we just came off of two of our biggest events for the year, Hummingbird and Seafair. Hummingbird was about 50% of what we normally have. Of course, last year we had it virtually, so we have to compare that to 2019. But overall, we were very pleased because at the beginning of the week, if you can remember, we thought we were going to have a hurricane coming in and also dealing with COVID. So we had two negatives that we were looking at. So at the end of the week, we were very, very pleased that we were actually above what we expected to be. So we had more than 100 volunteers that helped us out here. A lot of you did that, and we really appreciate that. We had visitors from 24 states, more than 151 cities throughout Texas, and 2 from other countries, Japan and Mexico City. So we had more than 1,000 seats taken for our speaker programs, and we recorded over 3,000 attendees in the Humber Mall, but that does not reflect all the attendees because there were so many coming in at one point, we weren't able to even get all the numbers. And so for Seafair, Seafair was a little bit of a challenge for us this year, but we came through and the event was really great. Carl Hatman, our chairperson, said it was great to be back on the festival grounds welcoming the crowds, and he pointed out several local groups that worked hard to help us with Seafair. That's the Boys and Girls Club of Lorances County and Rockport Fulton High School, NJROTC, the Spanish Club, and the RF High School Choir. These groups all receive donations. We take tips from the bar, and we also pay them to do the work. So we feel like they did an amazing job. And again, we want to say thank you to all of you who came out and helped and volunteered in some capacity. So going forward, what we're looking for October through December, Our venue committees, and I'm going to I'll let Diane bring Jared up right at this point.
Jared, do you want to come up? So we hired Jared, what was it, about 3 weeks ago, right before Seafair, and we said, just absorb everything, just absorb everything. And so as we're getting finished with the big events, we're incorporating Jared into a venue committee responsibility. We have so many venues within our community, pulling all of those venues together and looking at the marketing aspects of those. And let's try to fill maybe during the week business and generate a better marketing effort for the venues in our community. Work with the Fulton Convention Center, work with the Rockport Center for the Arts, work with all the hotels that have venue sites, and get that marketing a little bit better. So he's going to be forming a venue committee. He's going to meet with the local venue coordinators. And so we're excited to develop that. So you guys meet Jared East.
Hello.
Welcome to town.
I just want to say, for only being here a few weeks, he has really done an outstanding job so far, and I'm really happy to have him on board. So other things we are doing, obviously promoting the events. We have press releases going out on our events, and you'll have one in front of you, which is talking about the opening, the grand opening of the Fulton Pier. So if you are not doing anything Saturday at 1 o'clock, please be there. Also, we are doing an overall ad campaign within print, broadcast, and digital media. So watch for that. That's coming up pretty quickly. We're continuing our monthly email blast. If you don't receive that, let us know, because it goes out to 77,000 people and up that are on our list. And we are trying really, really hard to get a 30% opening for that. That's kind of difficult because a lot of times people don't look at it unless they're planning on visiting your town, but we'd like to see that. So we're going to work on making that a little more attractive as far as the opening of that. And what that is each month we send out everything that's going on in the following month. We also are continuing to promote our outdoor activities, our beach, our water, our Lorances pathway sites, birding sites, and of course the geocache tour. We're going to be bringing in more social media influencers. And if you don't know what a social media influencer is, those are people that actually, some of them even make a living doing this, and they're on social media, and they come in and they promote the happenings of your town or the attractions of your town. And they get in and as if they're actually doing all this. And sometimes they really do. And they come back. So that's really good. But what they do is they put it out there on their social media channels, and we choose people who have a hugest following. That's a new word, right? Okay. So we also are continuing our monthly meeting with our local attraction representatives, which is everything from the Maritime Museum to the Fulton Mansion to anything that we have that's an attraction in our area. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Diane because we've got something exciting on the horizon.
Sandy, I just want to say I received that monthly what's happening, and I read it faithfully and make notes on my calendar for things. I think it's a tremendous asset, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you. So upcoming in the visitor center, believe it or not, we have a lot of people that walk through the doors and go, gosh, y'all are okay. We thought y'all were wiped off the face of the earth. They want to read something about what we went through, what we experienced with Harvey, which I did not mention the word. You don't see Harvey in there anywhere.
Good.
But it's our journey and the exhibit. So as we traveled around over the summer months, I tried to look at exhibits and see what we could do with our budgets and be able to capture what we went through. And so this particular exhibit was at the Johnson Museum, LBJ Museum, and he incorporated his areas of what he worked on in his time frame. And so we thought, and the TDC, Tourism Development Council, has been looking at what can we do that would be classy about what we went through. So we're going to be picking the areas of the humanitarian support, the business support, and then different nonprofit organizations, and then the people that gave to our community, and try to capture that in an exhibit where there would be QR codes that would direct people to maybe interviews of people as to what went on and different things of that nature. So without going too deep into that, we're going to begin work on that for this next 3 months. We've enlisted Gilbert Medina, who is one of the curators for the Bob Bullock Museum. And then Justin has agreed to really chime in and help us with that. Justin, are you here?
No, he left.
And I know that Commissioner Casterline and I both attended the Waveland Ground Zero exhibit on what effects they had due to Katrina. So we've kind of putting all those thoughts together, want to bring a certain portion of the visitor center alive, and that you guys can tell people, if you want to read more about what we went through, go to the visitor center. There's an exhibit of everything there. Any questions?
Great. Thank you all for
As
everything.
always.
So you have one on this announcement for the ribbon cutting Fulton. It doesn't have the date on here unless I'm not seeing it.
It's this Saturday, 1:00 at the Fulton Harbor.
I was in that area of that Saturday night and it was unbelievable how many people were out there.
And I saw last night Troy Gonzalez caught a 36-inch redfish off the pier. That's great, a redfish. Yeah.
No kidding.
Thank you guys very much. We
Thank y'all.
truly take this serious, and we appreciate you trusting us into this project. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Commissioner Casterline, before you take a roll call vote, I think we need to amend your motion to approve the third quarter report as opposed to the fourth quarter report. There was an error on the agenda.
You made the
I
motion?
think I did. So on the notice that I was reading from, it says the third quarter, but you're saying on our agenda, it said the fourth quarter, or they're saying it's the fourth quarter?
No, it
As the
says on
fourth
agenda.
quarter, when it should have said the third quarter. So I just want to make sure our motion that you made and Commissioner Cheney seconded
Okay,
reflects third quarter.
all right. So I move to approve the third quarter 2021 report for the Rockport Fulton Chamber of Commerce.
And I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Chase,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lala.
Aye.
All right, next we have the third quarter 2021 report from the Friends of the History Center. Pam, I guess you're on.
Should we have the motion first?
I make a motion to approve the third quarter 2021 report for the Friends of the History Center.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Good morning, Court.
Morning.
We think of ourselves as a small boutique museum here in Rockport. We don't have the numbers or the attendance that you just heard, but we have a lot going for us. And I think that's illustrated well by a comment we received on Google from a visitor. The visitor said, "We received an excellent tour of a small yet interesting museum, the History Center, by a well-informed docent. Next time I go to Rockport, I'll stop in again as they regularly change their exhibits. Well worth your time to get a flavor of the area." So for us, that says what we do. Right now, we have 3 exhibits up, one Connie Hager Corner that we always put up for the Hummingbird Festival. We have Voices from the Past, which illustrates the entire county history. And we have Places in Time, which is about a lot of our historic sites around town. We really enjoyed high attendance during the Hummingbird celebration because we had a Pathways event there and we had a breakfast and served as a Hummer home. So those are really nice times for us. Because we're tucked into a historic neighborhood, we really depend on events to get people in there to fill up our parking lot. Grants that we received, you can read. These major grants will be going to a new exhibit that will open in January about the Vietnamese culture in our area, 40 years on the coastal bend. We're going to have an exhibit, a book, and a documentary about this. So I think you'll really, really enjoy that. Another thing that I featured in the report was about some wine seals. So I sort of tag on to the wine festival here. But we have 2 wine seals in our exhibit about Aransas County. These came from an archaeological site from 1830. And I tend to think about people living on the frontier as they were here in 1830 as living in a log cabin with a dirt floor, not very sophisticated. But here we have 2 wine seals from the Médoc region of France that our fellows were drinking here in 1830. The rest of the story I like to project is who probably drank wine with James Power, who was the impresario at this site. Probably his in-laws, who were significant Mexican Spanish family, probably Sam Houston, because Power was a very good friend of Houston and brought Houston into the Declaration of Independence for Texas. And he also had hosted Zachary Taylor at his home before the Mexican-US War. So these wine seals, to me, have a really big story, and it's a lot of fun to portray them. In an effort to get more people to visit, we do a lot of outreach. So I've presented our story of Voices of the Past to the DRT chapter in Corpus Christi, been on a local panel at the Fulton Mansion about archaeology, given the historical background to the LAC class recently, participated in the Seafair, and we heavily promote the geocache tour and have had a geocache actually at our house for the last 5 or 6 years. So that's our story. We appreciate all the support that we get from Aransas Pathways. We're one of the venues for the Aransas Pathways, and we really appreciate that support. Thank you.
Pam, I was able to attend the presentation that you had at the History Center, I think a week ago Sunday, on the Lone Star Rising. It was history of the Lone Star Brewing Company in Texas. And Joe Fox from the Fulton Mansion gave the presentation. And even though the brewer was in in San Antonio, he did bring in the Coastal Bend too. So why don't you tell them what the next presentation is scheduled?
Surely. We have monthly presentations on Sunday afternoons at 2:00, which are a pretty good time for people to get out, and they always tag on to whatever exhibits are. So the next one will be in November. I think it's around November 20th, 21st, and it'll be on Christmas decorations, especially vintage ornaments. We'll have Christmas trees up by that time in the main gallery. So we hope you'll visit us then.
Thank
Sunday,
you.
what,
It's a Sunday afternoon.
which Sunday? Every Sunday or?
No, just one.
One Sunday a month. I think this one will be around the November 20th, whatever.
Okay,
that-
so the date varies. Okay.
So Pam, what area of the county did you find the wine seals?
The
You don't
wine
have to
seals.
tell me the location. I want to instigate some diggers or anything.
You bet. The wine seals came from a recorded archaeological site, which is the best anybody can come up with is the site where James Power had his home on the bluff overlooking Copano Bay.
Okay. So what instigated the dig?
The artifacts that were in the bluff were beginning to fall into
Yeah.
the bay. And so the artifacts were actually mainly picked up from the beach area.
I have a brick that somebody gave me from that area that washed,
Oh, good.
that was eroding out of the shoreline.
Well, we'll have to at least get a picture of it. Thank you.
Pam, that's November 21st
Thank you.
for the next presentation at the History Center.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Law.
Aye.
14, advertising the 2020 road materials bid.
I move to approve advertising for 2022 road materials bid.
Second.
Roll call.
Does-
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Law.
Aye.
David, you didn't want to get up and detail all this, did you?
Did you have anything to tell us about it?
I'm sure they probably will.
I've heard that somewhere else.
All right, item 15, First Amendment to agreement between Aransas County and Mott McDonald for engineering services, which contract was,
Making a motion.
no, I'm just reading the agenda item because I felt like it was kind of detailed. And
Well, if
which
you like, I'll put it in the,
contract to executed on July 21st, 2020 to revise the scope of the agreement for additional construction oversight services for the Cedar Bayou Vincent Slough reopening project and to adjust the total cost of the agreement to reflect the fees for the additional services and the increased amount of not to exceed $69,122.54 and authorize the county judge to execute the necessary documents.
I make a motion to approve as read.
second.
Any questions?
John, you want to elaborate? I'm sure there's some interest in where the money comes from to pay it.
Sure. The reason why we're doing the amendment is that we started earlier than May 1st. This was a contract for oversight from May 1st to October 31st. The contractor wanted to get in early. It was okay to do that. He got in early. So the oversight started almost a month early, and we are right now going to be a little late getting this finished. So it's going to go in. So they needed additional funds to provide the oversight. That means a person goes out there daily and stays out there with the crew and the contractor. Funds are coming out of, we have a grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife. So the funds will come out. It's no general funds coming out of this.
So it's no effect on the general fund?
No.
Okay, move to.
Roll call.
No, I have a question.
Sure.
So what they are proposing is reducing the amount of oversight they provide on this project while they're going to increase our fees by over $69,000.
No, that's not true. They're
Okay,
increasing
as I read this document, it appeared that they said they had cut back to, say, going there 3 times a week or 2 times a
Yeah.
week, and they were looking to reduce that number.
The time period is increasing.
Correct.
So it's not like their time ends next Sunday. And so now they're going to be going out there for additional periods of time.
Did they go out the amount that they intended to up till now, and now they're just cutting back their time
Right.
for the overtime?
Trying to cover the time that they need to be out there. Yes.
Saving some money.
Save us some money.
So they felt like as they were wrapping up, they didn't need to be a daily presence
No.
anymore?
They were out there the whole time. And now like I said, they started a month earlier. So we've used up the money they have allotted for that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
No.
Commissioner Lawler.
Aye.
All right, number 16. Resolution R26, 2021.
I move, do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
I move to approve the resolution R26, 2021, a resolution to elect to participate with the state of Texas and other political subdivisions in the Texas Opioid Abatement Fund Council and Settlement Allocation Term Sheet, to elect to participate in the Texas Opioid Settlement Agreement secured by the Texas Attorney General, to authorize the county judge to execute necessary settlement documents, to provide for repealer and severability, to confirm compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, and to establish an effective date.
I'll second the motion.
Jen, you
Jen,
want to elaborate on it a little bit?
I particularly am hoping to hear, does this confer any obligations on us other than to spend the money according to whatever list of things we're allowed to spend it on? And also, I think I read 267,000 was our cut.
Well, I don't know for sure what the amount will be. We're part of an 18 county area. On one of the exhibits to the contract, or pardon me, to the resolution, you'll see that it's the counties are broken down into regions. And our region of 18 counties is receiving $27 million. It'll depend on how many of those counties choose to participate in the settlement, on how those funds are allocated.
There's another chart in there, I think, that breaks it down by county.
And by city. There are several different charts.
Yeah.
But it'll depend on how many people participate, because the settlement agreement that has been reached, there are two. One is with a manufacturer and the other is with three separate distributors. The only way those settlement agreements go into effect and are legally valid and binding is if the state of Texas and enough political subdivisions agree to participate in the settlement. So agreeing to this today, passing this resolution or adopting this resolution does not guarantee that we will receive funds. What it guarantees is that if these settlement agreements have enough participation to go forward, we will receive our portion of the funding by choosing to participate. It also means that we are waiving our rights to further seek remedies from that manufacturer and those three distributors.
Do we actually join in the lawsuit, or did the state join sort of on our behalf?
It was the state and I believe 16 political subdivisions. We were not one of them. But it was basically treated like a class action, and it gives all political subdivisions in the state the opportunity to choose to participate in the way that the state has set this up. That's what the term sheet is. And then the two separate agreements that have been negotiated so far.
Now, I saw that there were the two charts, one that allocated money to a group of counties, it was somewhere in the 20 millions that included us, and then a separate one that allocated 267,000 to us. Are those duplicative, or are there two funds that we might be eligible for?
For the county, it's one amount of money. I thought the other chart, and I may be recalling it incorrectly, was broken down by city, and that the city of Rockport, for example, would be receiving separate funding from the county.
We're on that too. I mean, it had Rockport, Fulton, and Aransas County.
Yeah. Okay. I don't recall seeing
But
it.
in other words, I'm just wondering, is it that we're possibly up for 267 plus some allocation of the multi-county fund? And we don't know how much that would be yet because we don't know what our share would be.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
I was at a conference recently that they went over this a little bit, and I believe actually if some counties don't decide to participate, our amount of money the people that do, their funds could go up.
Yeah.
Sheriff, what?
Say for clarification to your point, 25% of the settlement will be divided between cities and counties. And it's a little more open about what you're going to use. And that's where the 260,000 in the city of Rockport's qualified as well as all the other cities in the county. The larger portion to the 18 county deal is 75% of the settlement will be allocated on regional deals. And we're in an 18 county group where guidelines will be established at that time.
So that could be a big number.
Well, but with 18 counties, it's, and it'll be directed under protocols being set by the state at a larger level. There's a panel being set up to guide some of this, but it's all, if and when money is available and based on how many do participate.
Where will this money go? Which fund?
Well, the money that we receive would be allocated to specific purposes, and that is part of agreeing to participate in this settlement. There's a list of items on Exhibit 2 to the resolution that sets forth all of the programs we can use those funds for. And I think the sheriff's interested in working directly with allocating those funds. A lot of it's toward drug treatment options and also opioid addiction prevention measures.
That's really pretty open in the future, but the action today, if I understand the document's correct, or that we just have to vote, number one, to participate and agree that you're not going to seek a settlement or lawsuit outside of the class action that's already been done.
And my assumption is if you elect not to and join, then you basically have to pay for your own suit.
If you chose to move forward. I think that a couple of years ago, there was a law firm that came and spoke to the commissioner's court.
Right.
I'm learning that now.
But we didn't take them up on it.
That's right. And at that time, the commissioner's court did not choose to participate. This is a good solution. The Attorney General's office and these other 16 political subdivisions have negotiated on behalf of all of us who are willing to participate. And the idea that we didn't have to subject ourselves to the risk of loss financially to participate and receive funding, I think is a good outcome for us.
I call for the question.
Wait, Jackie, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to answer Jack's question for where the funds will be put, that we will set up a special revenue fund where it will be kept separate.
Okay.
So it will not be commingled in the general fund.
Okay.
Roll call.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castro.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Locke.
Aye.
All right, item 17.
I move to approve entering into an agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. to provide services necessary to implement changes required by a new Texas law, Senate Bill 41, relating to the consolidation, allocation, classification, and repeal of certain civil court costs, which services will include software updates to Odyssey and training for county staff for a cost not to exceed $15,750, and to authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents.
Well, I see Tana's name on here. You're going to tell us all about this?
Second.
Oh, Jack, did you?
No, he didn't.
So I
I
said,
reached out to Tyler Tech for their assistance in setting up all of the fee schedules and fees and mappings that go along with that. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, we did have them assist us with on the criminal side with the Senate Bill 346 that was effective, I think, January 1st of 2020. And it was quite cumbersome. So we decided to reach out to Tyler for the civil side this time. But in addition to the setting up the fees and changing all the fee schedules, we have asked them to assist us with training as well, since we do have quite a few new staff members who didn't go through the go live process with the software, which is why the additional cost.
Right.
I have a question too,
Yes,
Tana.
ma'am.
Thank you. I noticed in the background information, they talked, or it was cited that there had been such large turnover so that would allow new employees. My question is, since the staff in each court will be trained on this so they can become subject matter experts and they could make the changes in the future, if we continue to experience turnover, will there be training manuals that will accompany the training sessions so that then new employees will have resources and be able to do this without additional training?
It's my understanding that with Tyler helping us, that they also will train on, they have a Tyler University online through their website that everybody can get a username set up and their own account, so that going forward, they can reach out and view past webinars. They can view any training manuals that are all online, nothing physical for them, that will assist them going forward.
All right, thank you.
Everybody that's been here for a while knows that I am not a Tyler fan by any shape, form, or fashion. I've never found Tyler to be forthcoming in everything they said, and I've never found Tyler to be ready to help us long-term at no cost. However, I think Tyler is evolving so that it's really becoming a tool that we're kind of stuck with now. And it would cost us so much to get away from it that everything. But I really want y'all to be comfortable in anything that you do with Tyler.
Yes, sir.
And I really don't like Tyler. So that having been said, that comes from what, 10 years or 12 years of dealing with Tyler and their idiosyncrasies and changes of ownership and new people. And we didn't say that. I just don't trust them.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's my concern, that if we, and obviously we need to be trained, the staff needs to be trained if there have been mandatory changes, but we could get some sort of guarantee that future new staff members would then have some resource with which to train. And I don't know if Colin's visited with Tyler about this.
So one of the things that we're also looking at doing is to ensure that we record these training sessions.
Okay.
So we can fall back to the future. We want to have something that's documented for our environment.
Good.
Customized for Ransom County. While Tyler does have a lot of resources, they are very much a cookie cutter company. If you don't do it the way everybody else does it, their training documents are very useless unless they've trained you specifically on your process.
So we would have our own resources available. Okay, thank you, Colin.
About 10 years ago, I had a conversation with Tyler Technology. It it was not a nice conversation, but it was a conversation nonetheless. But they said that was one of the reasons they came up with the Tyler University or whatever it is to help do that. But I agree with what Colin said. Sometimes what they have on there doesn't really fit our needs. And everything. I don't know how to get away from Tyler. I don't know if we could afford to get away from Tyler, but I sure want to be careful.
Roll call.
Mr. Tate.
Aye.
Mr. Casper.
Aye.
Mr. Russo.
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Said didn't like them, didn't say wouldn't vote for them.
Number 18, September monthly treasurer's report.
I move to approve it.
I second that.
On the sheet that I have given you, it shows that 87% of the money is in the depository bank and 13% is in investments, which is low because of the interest rates. Unfortunately, we have $40 million, which is more than we normally have, and I really don't have any choices on the investments. I would like to go into the interest.
Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I move to approve the third quarter treasurer's investment report.
I'll second that.
Alma, that microphone's not working.
You cut out.
So the total interest earned for the operating funds or accrued is $60,406, $31,324 for the bond funds. The average that we earned is 0.7 on the operating funds. If you look at the third quarter for 2019, we were at 2.09%. Or 2.19%. So there's a difference in what we're earning. The last page of my investment report shows a graph that shows the total of all funds for the last 3 years. And that shows a very good picture of where we're at as far as how much funds we're holding. I should have it on the screen, but I didn't.
Okay.
Any questions?
Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right, item 20.
I make a motion to table item 20, 21, and 22 for additional information.
Second.
All right, I think we want to read
individually.
these and at least just discuss them before we bring it to a vote.
Linda and I were going to request, if you would, to please go ahead and hear these items today for discussion only, instead of tabling them to make a motion just to discuss. And that we would bring them back to you in the future.
I make a motion to discuss the proposed revisions of the Aransas County Employees Handbook regarding education incentives for county employees as recommended by County Benefits Committee and County Handbook Committee.
I'll second that motion to discuss.
Okay, all three of these policies that are coming up have been reviewed by both the benefit and the policy committee, which the court directed us to form. This particular one, the only change that we're really looking at for the most part is to allow employees to apply for the credit, the education incentive at the time of enrollment rather than waiting until the course has been completed. It's the committee has discussed the possibility and the facts that it's difficult and problematic, especially for some of the lower paid employees to be able to afford that cost to go to school in advance and then have to wait until they finish with the course. So that's kind of why we're asking if it would be possible to allow employees to apply for it in advance. Since 2016, we've only had 5 employees take advantage of the education incentive. The last 2 years, no one has taken advantage of it.
I kind of agree with that. The one thing that did catch me off guard was the amount that you put in there as far as a total amount. I realized nobody's going to do that all at one time. And my assumption is that would they have to come to the court or something to get approved for that expenditure? Or
The way we do it currently is they have to apply, there's paperwork and forms they have to fill out with their supervisor. Their supervisor has to sign off on it. And then those forms are sent to the auditor and to HR, and then we sign off on it. They have to prove that, they paid for the course, that they passed the course. We're really not asking for any changes, that all of that would still stay in place. It's just that they would be able to apply in advance, show where they have paid for the course. And then when they are finished with the course, they would have to prove that they did pass the course. If they did not pass the course, then we would do
Clawback.
Sorry.
That repayment agreement?
Yes, the repayment agreement. Thank you. And the maximum, we don't have a maximum right now in the policy. I mean, it's just been kind of open-ended. Granted, we haven't had a lot of employees take advantage of it, but if you're really looking at going to a degree, 10,000 is actually kind of low. You're looking at a lot of money out of pocket. So that I think that was just an average number that was, I looked at as a possibility.
Linda, my question, is there going to be a requirement, because I didn't see one in here, where an employee must work for the county a certain amount of time before they would qualify for this, like 6 months or something? Lest a person come on, work here for 3 weeks and apply for the $500 stipend?
I don't believe we had put in any kind of requirement for how long they had to be an employee, just that they did have to stay with the county. I believe it was 6 months after they had.
We did talk about it in our committee meeting, and the consensus was that if someone comes and they apply for the program to be paid in advance at the time of enrollment, and they don't stay long enough for us to recoup our funds, should they not follow the steps of the program, which require them to show that they've passed the course, et cetera, that we would always have the option of seeking other legal remedies to recover the county's funds. But the maximum risk would be $500. So our thought process, if I recall, as our collective group, was that the likelihood that that would happen seemed rather slim to us. Most people who would participate, I think, would plan on being a longer term employee, and that education would benefit the county, and the great benefit to the county was worth more than the risk of $500.
And what would be, though, do you think, the downside of putting in a requirement that they needed to be with the county for 3 or 6 months before they could apply for that?
Well, if you had an employee that was applying for the county because of that benefit and incentive, it may deter them and want to go somewhere else. That would be the only thing I could think of, unless Jen has something else.
If we're going to give 500, is the check going to be made out to the employees? Is it going to be made out to the institution where they're
Who do
going?
we make it out to now? The employee. Any other questions on that one?
Have we run this past the employees? Any of these three, have they been run past the employees to?
Not
see if they have
as
some
a
comment?
whole. The benefit committee and the policy committee both, which does consist of employees, have all approved this. Which is kind of why we formed the benefit committee, so that we wouldn't have to necessarily go out to every single employee, but that's kind of where we're at this point.
But I hadn't thought about that, but sort of following up his question, I know when you did the survey about what was most attractive in potential or current benefits, you all did do a survey. And now that the committee has come up with a recommendation, do you think you might do that too, to see what the interest is?
We could. It would take, the first survey that I did was prior to us having the benefit committee. And then it will take considerable amount of time to do a survey, but we could do one if you would like that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Before the next fiscal year, because the financial impact on the county should be low. If you look at past participation numbers, even if we double participation since 2016, it still doesn't have a huge financial impact on the county, but it would give us an opportunity to see interest. And if interest does pick up, this would give them the ability to enroll for classes for spring using this benefit. If we wait too much longer, then they wouldn't be able to because they do have to apply at least 30 days prior to the beginning of the class.
But if the survey went out, just an email blast, which Colin's office can probably do, just to see, I mean, one of the benefits of that would be just to make people aware that there is an education incentive, which I know during orientation it's mentioned, but a lot of other things are mentioned, so it could be overload. And B, to make people aware that it might be changing and more attractive to them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that could happen and come back to us by the next time we meet.
Can you help me with something like that, Colin? Okay.
I mean, and you just put a deadline,
That's a good
you
idea.
know, like,
That's a good idea.
You know,
I think the idea of an educational incentive is tremendous. And I always was concerned that it wasn't very well used here, and this might help improve that. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
you want to move on to 21?
I'll make a motion on 21 to discuss the proposed revision of Aransas County Employee Handbook regarding health insurance for retired employees as recommended by the County Benefits Committee and the County Handbook. I think a question was raised about.
I'll second that.
Sorry. Yes, I think a question was raised about when, again, when would this become ready for action? I mean, when would they be eligible for it? And I guess that's really it. I would suggest we put that out to the committee or to the employees as well.
So
I don't see
this
any-
one has already kind of been surveyed to a degree with the employees. It was something that the employees have already stated they wanted to keep the retirement health insurance benefit. This policy would become effective January 1st. Anyone hired before that would fall under the grandfather portion of it. And the only real change that we have suggested is to add that they have to be with Aransas County long enough to be vested.
And how long is that? I've forgotten. Is that 10 years?
Right now it's 10 years. Yes.
So right now, the policy is you don't have to necessarily have been with this county for 10 years. You have to have been with a qualifying employer.
You just have to meet the rule of 75 currently with the current policy.
And have you considered something in between where you count some of the time you've spent with other employees as opposed to giving it zero? And can you give us some idea of the financial impact of changing this benefit?
The 75 deals if they've been with another county in the
Yes,
retirement.
the rule of 75 for
County or
CDRS
school board
as
or-
long as, anything that they have been a member of that qualifies for TCDRS, because our rule of 75 is based on the TCDRS.
And I think the 10-year, I mean, I know everybody can have a different opinion, but I really support the 10-year, since it takes 10 years to vest, that it would take 10 years before you would qualify for this because it is expensive. And the last time I checked, I think we had 16 or 17 employees, and I don't know about spouses, who were on as retirees, and it's at about $700 per person per month.
So help me understand, is the current rule that you have to satisfy the rule of 75, which allows you to consider prior employees, eligible employees, but plus you have to have served 10 years with the county?
No, the
Or
current
how do they work
rule is
together?
just
Current.
that they have to meet the rule of 75 and be an employee leaving employment with Aransas County. What we're asking is to change it to where they would have to have served with Aransas County directly for the amount of time that it takes to be vested.
I may have asked that wrong. For retirement pension, not health benefits.
Oh, for retirement.
Is it a combination of the rule of 75 plus the 10-year rule?
No, for the TCDRS's retirement qualifications, it's the rule of 75 or be vested and 60 years of age.
And being vested means 10 years.
Mhm.
So you can do,
Yes, or if you've worked for the county for 30 years.
what's the difference between the work for us for 10 years and work for 30 years?
If you, with TCDRS, you can retire if you have worked for 30 years and have 30 years of vesting in TCDRS.
Okay, but what's the 10 years?
50, so then your rule would not meet the
Right.
75. Nor would it meet the 60 plus 10 years, but you'd work for 30 years, so you could retire.
Now I'm lost
The
again. What's
10
the 60
years,
plus
I'm
10?
sorry, to answer your question, I think the 10 years is what it takes to be vested with Aransas County through TCRS.
But
And how is that
the
related to
deal
the
in
70?
this, in
It
this,
just gives a point of
the
reference.
deal on this item really is that currently, if somebody works for the county for 10 years and leaves, the county pays their insurance until they're 65 years old. Am I right?
If we make this change, yes.
No, but
Currently, they don't have to have worked for the county for 10 years. They
Okay,
could
yeah.
work for us for a year and meet the rule of 75 and still be able
Okay.
to carry
Okay,
this
so
benefit. So
currently
what we're
you can
trying to do
either
is
meet-
clean it up so that it's not as big of an expense on the
Currently
county.
for pension and for insurance, you can either meet the rule of 75 or the rule that you've worked for us for 10 years and you qualify. Is that correct?
No, currently for TCDRS, you can meet the rule of 75.
Which is what? The pension?
The pension,
Not insurance?
not insurance,
Okay.
just the pension.
You can, if for insurance, you can,
Only right now, currently, you only have to meet the rule of 75.
and there is no 10-year requirement.
No. They have to be vested with TCDRS, but they do not have to be vested with Aransas County.
So we have had employees who have worked for us for a year or 2 years, retired because they've worked for prior employers who participated in either in TCDRS or TML or the state judiciary. But then we end up paying their health insurance maybe for 10 more years until they become 65 and go on Medicare.
And I'm sorry, because I keep getting this confused. In the current pension rule, not health insurance, current pension rule is what? You have your choice between,
You can either have worked for a TCDRS program for 30 years. You can be 60 years of age and have 10 years of service time, or you can meet the rule of 75, which is your age plus your service time.
okay,
So there's 3 different ways to go.
Yes.
okay. And the change that we're discussing is for health insurance, we're saying you have to meet the rule of 75
Plus
and have 10 of those years have to have been here.
Yes.
Got it.
I think Carrie wanted to speak to this.
I think this is something that can be very confusing, and even things
Say it
that
isn't so.
the commissioners have said in your belief of how something is, and things that I was told when I was employed weren't necessarily what in fact is in the handbook. I want to first off thank you for tabling this. This is a very important issue, and I will tell you that it affects me personally, or can affect me personally in a very great way. I'm not taking it personally, but it does affect me, or it has the opportunity to affect me personally. And I'll just throw out some examples so that deal with me, so people can maybe understand. I am vested already through TCDRS. I joined Aransas County in 2014, but I came with some prior service. So I have my 10 years in. I had 3 years of, actually had 4 years of prior service, but I got credit for 3 because of a computer conversion error. Got that going for me. So I don't qualify, won't qualify under what I understand is the rule of 75, because if I lose my election and we're not in control of that, then the end of my term is December 31st, 2022. At that point, I will have met the rule of 73. So in this situation, somebody like me, who I don't have the opportunity to continue on without getting elected, I'm not somebody in a department. And I think that there are other people who you should consider this for as well. People who work for electeds who are going to be up for reelection, maybe somebody like Jennifer in Judge Bianchi's office, not saying that Judge Bianchi won't get reelected, not saying that I won't get reelected, but we're not in control of whether we are or not. I don't know who, I don't know who represented my interests on the committee. I don't think anybody really did. I didn't have the opportunity to speak to the committee. I think that maybe there should be something considered, looking at maybe there's a partial benefit. I understand the idea of somebody coming to the county already vested, working like no time, and then getting free health care for themselves and their spouse for a long time period. And I can understand where that is not a good plan. On the other hand, I hate to think that my, retirement with the county might be fully, not fully, but much of it would go towards my health care until the time I reach Medicare. I do think that I have contributed a lot to this county. And I hate to think that I could be somebody who would miss out on this sort of a thing. I do meet, I wouldn't lose my retirement, but I would lose this, and potentially I wouldn't be losing it because maybe it wasn't there to begin with, even though, as you all admit, it's a very confusing thing if you can do it one of three ways for your retirement, but not necessarily for your health benefit. And so I personally would like to have people think about how this affects people in the county, people who are current, people who are future, people who are electeds or work for electeds, because you're not in control. And I feel like it's a great penalty for somebody who doesn't have the opportunity to just maybe work one more year, something like that. And I kind of look at it like the person who, I don't think it's great for somebody to come in and not contribute, but I will have had 8 years that I will have contributed to the county, and I've saved the county a lot of money. And I'm not one who tries to get a lot of credit for things I do, but I think there are a lot of people who do know that I have supported this county a lot, and it feels like a lack of support, a lack of consideration.
Carrie, I thought this rule wouldn't even affect you. Doesn't it only affect people who come to work for us after the beginning of next year?
No.
It actually does not. It is something that, like Commissioner Casterline mentioned earlier, when he said something, he said, well, isn't it this way? And no, it's not, because there is confusion because there is a certain way that TCDRS does it. Right now, it's the rule of 75. So your years of age plus your years of service would need to equal 75. My years of age plus my years of service by December 31, 22 will be 73.
But we're not proposing to change the rule of 75.
Now, the
Jim, you
current
were gonna-
policy, I think that this is where the confusion is. The current policy says that you have to reach the rule of 75 to qualify for the health benefit. Carrie's suggesting that the rule of 75 be revised and that it be some lower number than 75. That's different than the proposal our committee brought, which was just to make sure that the rule of 75 is left undisturbed. We didn't ask for a big change there due to the financial impact that can come. And we're not in a budget year time at the moment. So we were looking for impacts that don't have a financial impact on the county in where we would be spending more money at this time because of where we are in the budget cycle. So right now, what we're asking for as the committee was just to make sure that people who enjoy the health benefit work for the county long enough that it makes sense to pay their health care.
And that doesn't affect people who currently work for us. It would
does
only
not.
begin to affect people who
It,
work.
it affects, it does affect people who
It
work.
doesn't, because the policy is already the rule of 75 and we're not changing that. The only change would go into effect January 1st of 2022. And it would require that people that are hired on or after that date work here for at least the same amount of time that it would require to be vested in TCDRS
So
through the
they're
county.
already, they would already have been subject to the rule of
Yes.
75, and we're adding the additional requirement that they
Yes.
had worked for us for 10 years, but only for people who were hired after the end of this year.
Yes.
Right, but I'm suggesting that the committee look at the bigger picture and consider not just
an additional change,
not just employees who don't work for elected officials and not just department heads who are not elected officials. I'm looking at the whole population of the county, not simply the people who would not be by their own.
But the rule of 75 is not set by us, that's set by TDRS. Right?
No, that's not correct. There are 3 options that the county can choose for benefits. And that is the same 3 options that the county chooses for TCDRS. It can be, yes.
Before we move on, Linda, can we ask Carrie if she'd like to come to our next committee meeting and visit with all of us so you can understand all of the different things that we considered? It's a pretty big group of us and people that have worked here a very long time, people that have worked here no time at all, in age range from in their 20s all the way up to nearing or maybe close to retirement, but we don't want them to leave age.
Are your committee meetings generally open? I mean,
Yes.
can we just say anybody who would like to come is?
I think that generally, yes, we do have to make sure we keep it within our allotted time period. And sometimes we don't get through a whole lot of topics because they are a big discussion.
If they are open, the question is, do you publicize them? Do you put out a notice that they're going to happen?
We don't, because the point of having the committee was to try to have a wide range of employees
Okay,
to
that-
represent.
Then I think you're describing what's not an open meeting, and that's okay with me. I just want to make it clear. Are you opening it up to the public or just inviting a particular person?
If they would like to come talk about this issue, I think we could make a bigger.
It's open to any employee.
Yeah, I believe any employee that would want to
If it's open
participate,
to
all
an
they'd have
employee-
to do is let me know and
Then
I
I-
can let them know.
They
when
just
you
have
Then the
to ask
question
want
is,
to be.
I have is, do you send out some kind of a notice to
Well, now we
employees so
will,
that they know?
because now it's become clear that more people want to participate. At
Okay.
first, it was kind of hard to find people, I think, that have the time in their schedule to come to every meeting, but I'm sure Linda would.
That's
be
all I
happy.
was suggesting is to clarify whether you're going to send out an email so that employees know they can come.
I never got anything to ask people to volunteer to be on this committee. I never heard anything about how it was just simply people were selected.
Well, we can correct that going forward. If you said that they're allowed to come, I apologize because I misunderstood this then. I thought this was going to go into effect January 1st and apply to everyone. But this is only going into effect for new hires.
For new hires
Is that what you're
after.
saying?
Yes, we need to grandfather in the ones that are already
Right.
in. Otherwise, we could end up with other liability issues. My suggestion is that we go ahead and move forward when we bring this back to make the current change that we're suggesting. If the court wants to review the possibility of making the suggestions or the changes that Carrie is looking at, that we do that during budget time next year because it will have a budget impact.
And what
I
are
think
the,
that's a good idea. Linda.
if we don't do rule of 75, are there 2 other options that the
TCDRS has 2 other options.
and what are they?
60 years of age with 10 years of service or 30 years of service altogether.
Okay.
And that would be 30 years of service with Aransas County?
No, with TCDRS, it's 30 years. We could put 30 years of service with Lorances County.
Right,
Yes,
then I
but
would
not
really
all.
not want to see that.
Yeah,
It's with any qualified TDRS.
right.
And those
For
3,
TCDRS, yes.
we are limited to those
Well,
3.
yeah, but
as
I
long as-
really don't think the county, Ransom County shouldn't be responsible to pay somebody's insurance because they worked for somebody else.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
just not right.
Before we talk about what it should be, I just want to make sure I have clear in my mind what our options actually are. So as long as we stay with our current pension structure with I keep forgetting the acronym, we have those 3, the 3 that you just announced. So we can't make up another one. We can always layer on a new obligation of our own, but we working with them, we have to go with one of their three options.
Yes.
Okay.
My concern is for the taxpayers of Aransas County.
I agree.
We have a very generous package here of benefits. And like I said, I do not know how many right now are on that were retired, but the last I had the figure for was earlier this year, and there were 17, which is about $12,000 a month, which comes out to about $144,000 a year. This county is paying for people who no longer work here. They also get retirement. They've also had, opportunities for vacation and sick and holiday. We are not necessarily in the business of guaranteeing insurance for people until they hit Medicare. That is a tremendous overreach for this county.
Nor are we in the business of ensuring that anybody continues to work for the county for any minimum period. Everybody who works for the county can stop working for the county kind of at any time. They're not, nobody has a vested right to a job for life.
That's correct.
Yes.
So I'm fine if you want to bring this back without any change. You meet with the committee, however you want to handle it, and then bring it back to us. But right now, I know that I would not approve anything that would make this apply to more people than it currently is. I think we need tighter restrictions, not fewer. Thank you.
Let's go on, move on to 22.
Okay.
I move to discuss the proposed revision to the Aransas County Employee Handbook that would renumber the section entitled Emergency Leave and create a new section for a policy entitled Public Safety Quarantine Leave.
I'll second that.
Okay, this is just because the state of Texas passed a new law that we have to have this as a policy. The wording and everything in it basically came straight from the law that was passed. So if you have any questions.
I do have a question on the fourth page under C4, reimbursement for expenses. If applicable, a covered employee may be eligible for reimbursement for reasonable costs related to the quarantine, including lodging, medical, and transportation costs. Would these be covered under workers' comp, considering that it might, have been exposure when they were on the job?
It should be if workman's comp comes to the decision that it was work related, yes.
Have we had anything submitted to date? I mean, I know I heard about jailers during the pandemic really getting
had some
exposed.
that have been exposed and those have been submitted. We haven't had any extra outside expenses.
Okay, but up till now, workers' comp has covered those as a work related. Thank you.
I had a problem with the wording starting on page 1. It says paid quarantine leave for firefighters and emergency medical technician. Emergency medical technician is a private company, and I don't see in the future of that coming back as a county company. So they have their own benefits. So I don't think that should be in there. And firefighters needs to be defined that firefighters employed by Aransas County. Now, that has to be refined further as well, because firefighters don't get paid.
Okay, but it does say paid employee of Aransas County on both of those from what I'm seeing.
The reason why I worded it that way is those are the definitions from the statute or from the new law. I just plugged in the Aransas County distinction. We currently don't have paid firefighters or EMTs that we hire to work as EMTs. I wanted to include them in this policy. However, if in the event the county does at some point have paid employees who are hired to be firefighters or to be EMTs, that it would be clear to everyone that this leave policy has to apply to those people, should we have those employees. We could add additional language in the policy to make it very clear to everyone that at this time we do not, but that we've worded it this way in anticipation that we could grow at some point in the future. We just don't want this to be an interpretation problem, or I don't, where in 15 years, let's say we decide we're going to have EMTs and nobody realizes this policy has to apply to them too.
We need to make it really plain.
Yeah. I don't see where at the time that we decide that we're going to have to go that we couldn't adjust this policy, because we're going to have HR person that should be, aware of those issues. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with our attorney, but I'm saying, I think that's something that makes it unclear here, because if I have a firefighter that goes out and gets injured on a fire call, and he's not leaving work to go do it, he's just out there injured on a fire call. Okay, under this, he's a paid employee, but is he necessarily?
He's not a paid employee.
Not a paid employee. He's not a paid employee.
He's a paid employee, works for the county, and he gets out and does something on a volunteer
We don't have any
basis.
paid firefighters in the
It
county.
doesn't.
We
need to
have a
be in
fire
there.
marshal.
He's saying that if the volunteer is a county employee,
Oh, yeah.
that.
Oh, I see.
And
But he's not injured in the capacity of his normal county job, but instead is his
That's right.
volunteer capacity.
Something to look at.
That might be a problem.
I would
Yeah.
say. Because quite often you say that something will never happen and it turns the other direction.
Well, I'm thinking about something like smoke inhalation or something like that they could come back and say, well, I had asthma or something like this and that exacerbated it. Well, if you got a policy that says we're going to take care of them, we're going to take care of them.
Jen, does the policy already make provision for, I suppose we already have the issue of a county employee who's injured doing something completely outside the scope of his paid county position. If I go work if I'm, hurt in a car accident on vacation, I work for the county, but I don't get to submit a workman's comp.
No, you don't. You would not qualify for workers' compensation. What we could do is clarify this to say a full-time paid employee.
Working within
And
the scope
that we
of
could
his-
define paid employee to make sure that it's clear that it would be paid for all hours of work and not just someone who's paid due to the circumstance you described.
But the issue we've got is not whether they're a full-time employee.
Paid employee.
A full-time paid employee, but whether the injury or problem occurred within the scope of their paid duties as opposed to their volunteer activities for their church, fire department, whatever.
That's true. This policy, the new law was passed. It's limited to people who have to be quarantined or isolated due to a possible or known exposure to a communicable disease. So it's
Right.
very narrow already, and it was basically intended to cover jailers and other public service officers who come in contact with people of all walks of life all day, every day at work.
Right, and those people don't have to prove that they were infected while they were on the job.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's a little bit different than your normal workers' compensation policy that would require there be at least more than just a nexus between.
Okay, so if you're both a full-time county employee working in, roads and bridges, and you work and you answer calls for the fire department and you come down with COVID, you're going to be covered because you're a full-time county employee.
No.
Because you're not a firefighter.
I'm just saying, if you get COVID, who cares if you're a firefighter? You didn't get it as a firefighter. You were working for the county full-time.
Well,
You come down with COVID, you get emergency leave.
You don't get paid quarantine leave. That's the difference.
Oh, the quarantine leave only applies to emergency
Yes.
workers like
This is
fire. I
public
got you.
safety only.
Okay. I got it.
Well, yeah. He was just bringing up that FMLA is also something that would apply in this, but it doesn't have much to do with the
Family
actual paid-
Medical Leave
yes,
Act?
But it wouldn't have anything to do with the actual paid portion of it.
And I think Tana had mentioned maybe last time at court that for the employees who were out during the pandemic on COVID related leave, there was a separate category that was set up. So this is just a new category the state has mandated that we're bringing in for these particular
Exactly.
job
Basically, it's an
classifications. Okay.
extension of what happened last year, but only for emergency.
Fire, yeah.
Okay, so you can fix this one by making it clear that you have to be a full-time paid firefighter, otherwise not just an automatic, not just some other kind of paid employee.
Absolutely. And I want to point out too, as Mike mentioned, FMLA could apply in some circumstances, but you have to be employed with the county for a specific period of time to qualify under FMLA. This policy applies to public safety employees, even if they've only worked here 30 days. So it does give them an opportunity to have job protection and also paid leave when they wouldn't have earned enough sick leave to cover that type of absence.
I think the sheriff might have a comment.
Is this inclusive of building maintenance?
That's all employees.
Well, but I'm asking, I require them to work in the detention center. We expose them to things in there.
That would be up for Commissioner's Court for the statute.
Well, I mean, as a consideration.
We just put in the minimum required, but if the Commissioner's Court wanted to do more, then.
Well, if they came and worked, if they're county employees and they came and worked and got paid for the hours, they're a county employee. They're covered.
But they're not a county employee as an emergency worker.
Oh.
We haven't got this on the agenda for today, but it sounds like several ideas are coming up for things that ought to be discussed by the committee and brought back to us and properly put on the agenda.
One point that I would like to make is that any employee who is exposed at work and they can prove they were exposed to work, we have to submit a claim to workman's comp. Workman's comp does cover any kind of a COVID work-related exposure. So if they got it at work and workman's comp does their investigation and they determine, yes, they did get it at work, they are going to get paid by workman's comp for their quarantine leave.
This year, have there been controversies? I mean, people come down with COVID. Is there an argument? Where did they catch it? Or do we just assume that they caught it at work?
We ask them, we have a very short form that we ask them if they know where they got it, and then we submit that to workman's comp, and then they do the investigations. We do.
I guess I should be asking it this way. Do we have any employees who claim they got it at work and were denied workman's comp because they couldn't prove they got it here?
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
no. But they're also very behind in processing workman's comp right now because of COVID. So.
And I think if the sheriff is concerned about the building custodians who would come in and service, they're still going to be covered under our other leave that we put into effect, right?
We have not only workman's comp, but another leave
Other
policy.
leave as in.
What Tana said, some sort of category that was set up to cover people who were out on COVID. This is just coming to us, right? Because the state passed a law.
Last year.
Right. And we can differentiate between, last year and this year after that they mandated this law.
Because the account that y'all set up was because we were getting funding from one of the funding sources like CARES or something to pay for it.
Well,
No, we were just mandated to pay it.
Yeah.
it was not extra.
It was
funding.
last year and we were
Okay.
just actually mandated
But
to cover that.
that was temporary. So if we wanted to make that permanent, we'd have to have a new policy.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I would suggest that y'all go back and review all of these, and if you need to call people in or let people come in to.
Okay, to get better direction from the court, are you interested in us adding facilities or other departments that might have a high exposure rate to this bill?
I think they need to be covered under some type of leave.
Yeah, maybe we're
Paid
looking
leave,
for an audit
either the
of-
quarantine or whatever the other category was that the auditor's office set up, but they definitely need to be
That
covered.
other category was just for our tracking because
Yeah,
we were
just for
required for
looking
any
at-
employee who had to quarantine last year to be paid for 2 weeks.
Maybe
That
what
was the
I'm
federal
hoping
law.
you can do is bring us sort of a description of all the different ways we have got some category of coverage and protection to fit into, so that we can assure ourselves that we're not leaving anybody in the lurch. And then we can, if there is somebody in the lurch, then we can think about, do we want to spend more money to fix the problem?
I think we also recently in our discussion with this law, we were deciding at that time to leave it with this code that I was telling you about, Pat, just for tracking purposes as well, because we don't know what is to come. I mean, legislature might mandate, extra funding and send it to us, and we need to be able to find access or, like quick access, really,
Right.
who we have paid with this COVID leave.
But even if the state never mandates and never gives us any more money for it, I would just like to know whether everybody who works for us is covered one way or another if they're required to take a quarantine leave. And if not, who are we missing and what could we do about it that wouldn't be too horrendously expensive?
Good points. Got all that, Linda?
I believe so.
All right.
So
Bring it back
Any
to us when
other
you get it ready.
comments or questions?
I move to approve the budget line item transfers and amendments.
Second.
Jackie? All right.
Roll call.
Aye.
Commissioner Cashman.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace.
Aye.
I move to approve accounts payable and payroll liabilities.
Second.
There is nothing unusual with this run.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Tate.
Aye.
Commissioner Cashmore.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Locke.
Aye.
All right, now's the time we receive reports from commissioners, elected officials, department heads. No action to be taken, but
I
got
got,
anything?
I got two more reports from my constituents in different locations. And one in a location that has come before the court before, that of projectiles.
Good grief.
Yeah, it's getting to be a real issue out there. I think there's something that we need to look at before the next legislature, is something that I don't want to take anybody's rights away to, with firearms and everything, but if you live in a neighborhood where you have a much more restricted area to be able to fire your weapon indiscriminately, I think that needs to be something we take to the legislature. I don't think it'll pass, but I do think it's something that at least would make us be receptive to a real threat in the county. Now, I want to tell you, the sheriff has been very responsive in all these complaints. That's the first thing I ask him. Have you called the sheriff's department? And if they haven't, I tell them to call them. And if they have, I ask about them. Every officer out there has been very responsible, and even the game wardens have been responsible whenever it becomes an issue with private property projectile trespass.
It's already illegal, right? I mean, it's not like we need to make it.
No, it's not illegal.
To shoot across your.
It is across.
It is illegal.
It's just hard to prove, isn't it? I mean,
It's just hard to prove.
Yeah.
I mean, if you imagine a world in which you magically could prove it, isn't it already illegal? I mean, is that not right, Sheriff?
Yeah, there's a law for.
Yeah, but
It's just really difficult to prove.
It's not county law enforcement, it's game board.
Well, it's
Is
any of
is that right, Sheriff Mills? Do you really
Sheriff
not
can
have
enforce
the
that law,
authority?
too.
It is not illegal in the state of Texas to discharge a firearm in the county.
No, but I mean, such
Trespass
that,
by projectile is a Parks and Wildlife Game Warden ordinance.
so you can't, your guys can't actually can't.
Well, we follow up and I don't believe we would have any argument from Parks and Wildlife if we can determine where it came from.
Okay.
If we're out there and somebody still is actively shooting, that's an easier deal to run down.
Right.
The last call that I know we responded to, we took measurements. We believe that round was fired from a considerable distance because of the deceleration in the fall. It entered the building came through a metal wall on one side, and in the short distance that it dropped nearly 4 feet, that thing was coming to rest already. That metal building was slowing down a projectile that had traveled a distance. But we follow up and we will canvass the neighborhood. We go door to door knocking, trying to find out, did anybody see anything, hear anything? It's a real futile effort sometimes, and trying to get people to own up to the responsibility with that freedom of gun ownership and the ability to discharge it, there's a responsibility for that projectile from the time it leaves until it comes to rest. And that's the hard thing that we're getting people to understand.
So do you need anything from the Texas legislature?
You might want to look at something that if you're getting into we've got a lot of neighborhoods out in the county.
So the idea would be to prohibit discharge, not have to prove where it went.
That may be a consideration that you take it to a range, or that people have a minimum acreage that they're into.
Right.
But we've seen acreage areas where the belief that the trees are going to stop it is not, that's a fool's idea.
Take 5 acres, shoot 30-06, it's not going to stand 5 acres.
They say, the trees, density has changed in two regards. Number one, the density of population in the county has gone up, and the density of the trees has gone down. You don't have the same foliage that we had 15 years ago stopping things, and we don't have as many areas. The distance between developed areas is diminishing. And I think people need to adjust that in their mindset, that what we did here 15, 20 years ago was a perfectly acceptable, safe pattern. It is not anymore. There's too many places where we've had mobile home parks and trailer parks pop up, subdivisions coming up all over the county. And so people need to take that into regard. And some people still want to argue I have the right to do that, but nobody's going to stand up and say, yeah, I fired that round, because there is a civil liability aside from the criminal prosecution under Parks and Wildlife.
Jen, does the county have the authority to pass something along these lines, or do we need the Texas legislature?
The possible actions that you're talking about would need to be done at the state level.
Okay.
We could perhaps communicate with our representatives and see if anyone's willing to introduce a bill at a legislative session to do that. I'm not sure how you pass anything that would be enforceable more than what we already have. The problem is
You
locating.
mean
responsible-
locally?
Yes,
Without-
or statewide, because the problem is locating the responsible party, and that will always be the problem.
I mean, I'm not, I'm not advocating a new county rule or a new state rule. I'm just trying to figure out if we wanted to take action here, are we talking about a lobbying effort in Austin? Or are we talking about something we can do locally? Sounds like it needs to be in Austin if anything's to
It would be
happen.
an Austin effort. And to her point, yeah, lobbying for it and passing it. The only thing you're going to really do is raise an awareness. Enforcement of it is still going to be a difficult deal because you're not there seeing it. We have had people believe they were adequately protected. We've responded to complaints as well of hearing gunshots, and we've gone out and found people that actually had dug out a hole and they had a berm established behind it. They had, very responsible in what they were doing. But there are people that are tuned to just hearing it and thinking, oh, this is wrong. You shouldn't be able to do that. This is the state of Texas. And it is a right that I'll defend, as a gun owner and Second Amendment rights that go with it. But at the same time, I am going to hold people responsible for
Or at least try
enjoining
to.
that right.
It's really hard to hold them responsibilities.
Yeah. Well,
That's the
every effort
problem.
will be made. I mean, but you almost need to see that happen or arrive at a time when it's still continuing.
Right.
But there are places that they've had multiple events. Now that's concerning that we've got some people that, they've gone out and they'll fire 2 or 3 rounds and then go back in and put the gun up.
What about
those-
nuisance laws, Jen? Can those be construed to extend to this?
You've still got to identify them.
I think, again, they absolutely could be, but the difficulty is locating the
Always
responsible
setting
party.
aside, I know proof's
I
hard.
know. But on the civil aspect, the same thing is true, that there are civil actions that
Yeah.
can be brought by those neighbors against a neighbor, for example. But again, it's the burden of proof is lower.
I'm
on civil.
thinking, I'm not so much thinking of telling people they're responsible for suing each other because that
No,
never
I don't
seems to work. But I mean, could the county theoretically pursue a public nuisance action?
I think it would be very difficult to do so.
Assuming you could somehow by miracle prove it, is that even within our powers? Maybe not.
I'm going through a
Okay.
whole bunch of things in my head at the moment. I would have to do some digging in and get back to you, but I'm thinking no.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to see in cases that have been made, did they have, other than somebody witnessing it, can you have cameras set up that, but you really have to be on that person's property where they shot it from.
True, because I mean, the distance that thing traveled, like
Yeah.
the example I gave y'all, that thing dropped nearly 4 feet in the space inside the building. So that was coming to rest and slowing down. That sheet metal building did not have a great impact on it. It was already coming to rest. That round could have been fired from up to a mile away.
Yeah.
Wow.
Depending on the angle and trajectory and the caliber and everything else. So, the field of probabilities just is enormous.
Yeah.
I do not recall, I can't say that somebody has recklessly gone out and deliberately fired into somebody else's vehicle. Now we've got, we have had arrests made where a month ago, we did make arrest for a drive-by shooting. And we knew who the players were and made the arrest. But these random deals are a whole lot harder to put together.
Quick question. I have to assume that people are not interested in shooting anybody when they're discharging their guns. They're simply doing it
Plunking.
on their own property. They are not thinking that there's the potential of this happening. You mentioned somebody having a burn, and do we ever talk to, by we, I mean your group, or is there a thought that maybe having more of addressing the people on these streets that might be potential people shooting, to talk about like a public safety class for guns and setting up a berm and doing things and really educating people as this is how far that bullet travels. I came from the country, out in the country in Kerrville, And we knew very much, and there are things like shooting across the street is absolutely against the law, at least it was there. I'm not sure, I don't shoot here, so I don't know. But I think possibly it could be one of those things you read in the paper and you think, well, that's somebody else doing it. You might have no clue that in fact that was you discharging your gun. And maybe there could be some public safety type of thing that, you know, to show people what they would do, the safety shoot on their own property if they want to target shoot. That's just my comment.
So we don't have a problem with any of that, but the mentality here, we encourage people that didn't hit buildings that are actually firing into ponds, thinking, you know, I'm shooting into the water. That thing's not coming to rest there. There's a good chance it's skipping off of there, ricocheting and going who knows where. There's just, people don't have, I don't think, the respect that we used to have across the general population for the velocity that thing's traveling, the distance it's going to go. A pellet rifle today, people think that's going to stay in the backyard. No, it's not. You know, they've got pellet rifles now that travel like 22s. And it's just, it is an educational process that people, I think, need to be more responsible and know what their gun is capable of. Not what it does, but what it could do.
Thank you, Sheriff. On a different note, I want to invite you to be here at the next Commissioners Court meeting. We're going to have a real delight. We're going to have the Live Oak Elementary Kindergarten come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas flag. It's going to be a hoot. It's going to be 20 of them. And then this is kindergarten. This is not third grade or fifth grade. This is kindergarten. And so I want to make sure that y'all are all aware of it because it ought to be fun.
Jackie, did you want to do the fee reports?
I was going to ask if y'all received it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, the fee report, as you can see, our collections have increased in most of the areas. If you have any questions, I would attempt to answer them.
Anybody else?
I have one thing. It's just a technical note y'all may be aware of. But as of yesterday, changing how you dial your phone. You have to use the full area code.
Oh, the 361.
10-digit phone number.
Say that
You
again.
didn't have to before?
We did not have to before, but the change in our area code to accommodate the 988 National Suicide Hotline number. Now you have to dial full 10-digit 361 plus.
I always have. I just thought I had to.
Anyone who moved here from a big city is probably already going to do it.
It's me, big city girl.
Probably. I'll have to update their contacts.
I just wanted to add that today is Jackie's birthday. So everybody, come by the office and wish her.
We missed
happy
that? What was
birthday.
that? What?
Jackie's birthday.
Oh, and I'm at the.
Hey, Jackie, I got the 86 rule. Yeah.
I got my Medicare card. Then if there's nothing else, do we need a motion to adjourn? I'm happy to move. I move to adjourn.
I second that.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 By acclamation.